Hi guys, welcome back to SV Astro channel. So today I'm going to discuss about a very important planet in astrology and a very important topic about that planet, which is retrograde. And we are going to talk about what happens when Saturn get retrograde in your birth chart. So this is not about the yearly transits. This is about when Saturn gets retrograde in your birth in your natal chart. So first of all, what is a retrograde? What does retrograde means, or like what happens? What does it means when planets gets retrograde in your birth chart? So basically, every planet every planet moves in a forward direction, except Rahu and Ketu. Those are the two shadow planets who always moves in a retrograde, means in reverse direction. So retrograde means moving in reverse direction. So every planet moves in a forward direction, but it sometimes happen that uh, a planet gets retrograde. It start moving in the backward direction, and this retrogression only is for Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, Mars, and Mercury. So like sometimes it happens that the planet is in a retrograde motion, and during your birth time, the planet is in retrograde motion. So what happens is that like when you born, the planet is actually in retrograde motion. So in your horoscope, that planet will be retrograde. So what happens when a planet is retrograde? So when planets is retrograde, it, as I told you, that it starts moving in the reverse direction. So whatever qualities, whatever the things it indicates and it possesses, those things or those qualities get reversed. It's because it start moving in the reverse direction. So today I'm going to tell you about what happens when Saturn get retrograde in your birth chart. So why I said that Saturn is very or is the most important planet is because that there are a lot of things about Saturn, and I'm going to make literally number of videos on Saturn slowly and gradually, because Saturn has there are a lot of things to cover about Saturn. I already made one video on Saraswati and Dhaya on Saturn. So, so what? Why Saturn is important is because not only just the Saturn have the seventh aspect like all other planets except Jupiter and Jupiter and Mars. Though Saturn has two other special aspects, that is the third and the 10th aspect. Moreover, it is not only these aspects, but Saturn has more effect in everyone's life, because after not after, actually Saturn has its Saraswati and Dhaya, and I've already made a video on Saraswati and Dhaya. So if you guys don't know about what is Saturn Saraswati, what is Saturn Dhaya, and what are the aspects of planets, you please go and watch out my those videos on aspects and Saturn Saraswati and Dhaya. For that, you just simply need to type in Shikhar Vats on YouTube, and you can access all my videos, including these videos, on my YouTube channel. So, as I said, that Saturn has these different aspects. Saturn has Saraswati, Saturn has Dhaya. So that means Saturn has a lot of impact in everyone's life, because Saturn comes in picture whenever it is in its Antardasha. Not only Saturn not only comes in effect whenever it's in its Antardasha or Mahadasha period, but Saturn also affects your life whenever your Saraswati starts, whenever you are running through a period of Dhaya. So this makes Saturn a very important, a very significant planet in everyone's life. So now coming back to our today's topic of discussion, that is a retrograde Saturn. So as I told you that the planets like Jupiter, Venus, Mars, Mercury, Saturn, they all get retrograde sometime or other. So what happens when Saturn gets retrograde? So I think probably apart from all other planets, this is the best thing to have Saturn retrograde in your birth chart. And why? Because as I told you that whenever the planet is in retrograde motion, whatever it possesses, whatever it indicates, get reversed. So what is Saturn? So Saturn basically represents the contraction. Saturn represents boundaries. Saturn represents limit. Saturn is like sometimes becomes an obstacle in our life, because Saturn requires a person to do hard work, and Saturn only gives you the result when actually a person is doing a lot of hard work. He's very disciplined and he's well organized in life. So sometimes Saturn becomes as obstacle also. Moreover, Saturn is our fears. Saturn represents our fears. Saturn also delays the things because Saturn is a slow moving planet. So wherever Saturn aspect, it actually delays those things. So these are the things which Saturn represents. So but when Saturn is retrograde in a birth chart, that means that all those things get reversed. Then now what happens is the person will going to have less limits. And what I mean to say is that the person will not going to face those limits which Saturn actually represents when Saturn is not in a retrograde motion. So that means there will be less limits, less boundaries, and less obstacles in person's life, and he can do very well in his or her life towards the things where Saturn actually sitting, towards the things that house represents where Saturn is actually sitting. So if a person is having Saturn retrograde in third house or 10th house, that is a very good position. Why? Because sitting in third house, Saturn is looking towards the fifth house and ninth house. So suppose if Saturn is not retrograde and it is looking at your fifth house and ninth house, which is the house of education and higher education. So that means Saturn delays, or Saturn shows that person will not going to have a higher education. But if Saturn is retrograde, then that promises the good education and higher education in one's life. So this is very important. And if suppose Saturn is sitting in 10th house, makes a person very active, because Saturn is now retrograde, but Saturn is a slow moving planet, but now it is retrograde, so it makes person more active and not lazy. So if Saturn is sitting in your 10th house, that makes person more active towards his career. Like he will become more ambitious and he wants to achieve more and more in his career. And also Saturn, as I told you, that Saturn is the actual significator of the 10th and 11th house in astrology, because 10th house represents Capricorn and 11th house is Aquarius. So the ruler of both these signs is Saturn. So Saturn represents your career and your gains also. So if Saturn is retrograde, that means that it promises a good career and gains also in your life. So this way, if Saturn is retrograde, it promises a lot of good things in your life. So if somebody is saying that Saturn is retrograde in your chart and that's not good, that's absolutely wrong. Because Saturn being retrograde shows a lot of good things in one's life. But the one thing has to be taken into consideration for Saturn retrogression is Saturn being retrograde will give good results only if it is not sitting with some malefic planets or is being aspected by a malefic planet. Like suppose if Saturn is sitting with Rahu, Ketu, or sitting with Mars, then these effects will not be that good, or I should say that there will be no good effects of Saturn retrograde if Saturn is sitting with these malefic planets or being aspected by a malefic planet. So but if Saturn is sitting alone in any of the houses, especially in third house and 10th house, that is a very good thing to have in your birth horoscope. There are a lot of other planets also get retrogrades, like I told you that Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, Venus. So I'll be making those videos going on the what happens when Jupiter gets retrograde, what happens when Venus gets retrograde. So but this is when Saturn gets retrograde. That means Saturn promises to give a lot of good things in your life. So guys, this is my small interpretation on what happens when Saturn gets retrograde and what is actually a retrograde planet and what actually it means if you have a retrograde planet in your horoscope. So guys, if you like my video, just please press the like button and do subscribe to my channel to have more information about astrology and more videos like this. So thank you so much guys for watching this video. See you in the next video. Goodbye.